In the meantime, it's always a pleasure for us here at BrightCloud WebRoot to bring in and have our partners come in and talk to you about their experiences, what's happening with them in the world, how they see the perspective of threat intelligence being utilized, to give kind of their background and perspective on that. And it's with great pleasure today that we welcome our partners from ADAMnetworks, David Redico and Francois.
Okay, very good.
Round of applause for our partners.
Check 1, 2. Hello. Thanks for having me. Okay. Hi guys. So, sorry guys, this is the clicker that I use?
Yes.
Yes. Green.
We need more volume.
Check 1, 2. Hello. Hello, 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 hello. 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 Okay. Okay. All right. So, my name is Francois. I'm with ADAMnetworks, and I'm here with David Redico. And I'm going to be speaking from the point of view where humans are touched by technology, and David will be speaking from the tech side. So there's going to be a lot of philosophical things from my end, and then you go, all of you can have a piece of David and get the real tech answers to what you're actually looking for, right? Okay. So, when we think about Zero Trust, we need to understand that it really is a reaction to failures, right? And so, doing what we used to do, harder, stronger, faster, is just not good enough, right? And the other thing that I think is important to keep in mind, it's not just about this intrinsic trust of the perimeter that is a failure, but really there are failures in security because of design failures, essentially. And so some of the systemic failures that legacy security has given us was, of course, DNS filter leaks, right, where there's direct IP connections and it bypasses DNS, but also circumvention because the web has gone dark because of encryption. DOH, DOT, ES&I made it so that you can't do really do S&I inspection and so forth. But most importantly, there's not proper egress control. So, and just a few notes about the Zero Trust philosophy, right? So first of all, there's this issue of, are you actually chasing the rainbow, right? If you read most of the white papers, a lot of it makes sense and a lot of things are really good in it, but there's this ending to it that says, well, most of the guys aren't fully going to get there. They're going to get there 80%. Maybe they're going to get there 90%. But as you know, if you have 1,000 doors to close, to secure, and you leave one open, where's the critical failure going to come from, right? So, to us, the missing tenet on Zero Trust is this, and that is that it has to be practical. You have to be able to implement it, else it's just a good idea, right? And then, of course, the marketing trap, okay? You're going to get probably Zero Trust fatigued by the end of this conference. And so, I want to be very specific that when we say Zero Trust connectivity, it's specific to making Zero Trust practical right now with what you're allowing your devices to connect to and not connect to, okay? So let's look a little bit, actually there's one missing here. Well, you guys, the castle wall approach, you guys all know that, right? So if we saw the castle wall slide up here, it's this big castle, everyone's in there, and once you're in there, you're fine and you're safe, right? Now we move to this model where we say, okay, it's not about the castle. We have to protect the guys that's in the village, and we're not just going to be looking at that perimeter. But you know that you can actually redraw this. Once you actually now verify between all of your assets, you can just redraw it and actually put all of these things on top of each other, and it very much looks like the castle wall. You're changing walls for a new set of perimeters, okay? And then there's this issue. Well, what about the rest of the internet that's not part of your Zero Trust club? Maybe they don't get to verify between your devices. What about those? And that's really where our focus lies here. Another key issue that we feel is at the core of this security failure is the illusion of proactive security. And what I mean by that is, you can think that you're proactive in your security because you proactively implement it. However, if you are using reactive tools, you still have a reactive posture. For instance, if you keep chasing what is bad, okay, at best, you're ever going to be protected against some of the known bad from yesterday. Okay, the block listing approach. If you keep chasing the bad guys, they always have the first move. So 83% of new domains we know are for malicious intent. And if you're trying to be blocking IPs, well, with IPv6, good luck. Okay, you can spearfish every person on the planet 47 octillion times before you ever have to use that IP address again. Okay, so the moral issue is there's always a victim if you're chasing the bad guy. Someone always has to get hurt first. And two, there's a time delay. And then what about limitations on threat intelligence? What about the things that you don't know about yet? So, all right, then it moves to detection. But the issue is if you do real-time detection, you've already been breached. So how do you actually resolve this? And the way that we do it is to say, you know what, let's just turn everything upside down. Let's just say everything's bad. We're not going to try to keep up with who is bad. We're just going to try to keep up with what is actually good. And the net result of it is essentially the way that we achieve that is to say, okay, we're using adaptive AI allow listing. That means the internet becomes nothing. It becomes nothing for your verified asset. It can't connect unless it verifies and the request where it's connecting to is verified to be safe. Okay? And then of course, using threat intelligence aggregation as well. So imagine this, that you're actually pressing a button, the internet becomes nothing to your device that you need to protect. And then when this device needs to go to Bank of America, verifies that it's safe. If it is, the internet is only Bank of America for that device, right? Now you need to go check something else. Well, what's good about it is allowed, but all the trackers, potential malware, anything that's not known and good is simply not allowed, dependencies on it. And then, of course, using AI to verify that and threat intelligence of what we're actually using with BrightCloud. DNS Harmony is a module that allows you to aggregate threat intelligence to help mitigate the issue of the unknown parts as well, right? But then the very, very important ingredient is egress control. And the idea with that, we call it don't talk to strangers. And that is that you're essentially disallowing all IP connections unless it's verified by DNS lookup. And this is the part where you get to have fun where David actually explains the tech side of things now, okay?
Sounds good. So when you typically have a device that's reaching out to make an IP connection of some kind, it will generally look at DNS first and say, where is whereroot.com? Where is brightcloud.com? And when it gets the response, then it reaches out by IP address. The problem is those are not mutually exclusive. So you can always have a device reach out by IP directly if it got an IP address through some kind of a command and control channel, for example. And so what we do with Don't Talk to Strangers instead is, first of all, click here, is we say one depends on the other. So unless you get an IP address via the DNS answer first, you can never reach out, right? So when we call it Don't Talk to Strangers, it is an IP address that was not first obtained by DNS, that is a stranger, and we simply don't allow that traffic out. And it turns out that even though it's a very simple concept here, that it has incredible consequences that are positive, really good positive consequences. And so we're going to go through some of those consequences right now. And one of them is that you end up with a truly proactive security posture. So I don't know if any of you are following Felina. Felina was a threat that was just uncovered last weekend. And it's because Microsoft protocol handlers allow for the diagnostic tool to be launched. And so from a PDF attachment, the diagnostic tool can be launched. And so you can basically have a remote shell popped instead of calculator, the favorite test, by just taking advantage of that weakness. So we now saw it deployed today. right? And those IP addresses are now known, and so now there's thousands of devices that have been going to these command and control IP addresses before they were known. With Don't Talk to Strangers, they would have never been reached, right? And so that's the power here, is that you get true proactive detection, or you don't actually even need detection in order to have protection be present. Also, you reduce your attack surface by 7,000 to 1 with an approach of allow listing when it's adaptive in nature. Because it turns out that as large as the web is of domains, we have 1 billion domains, the BrightCloud people would know this, but the average organization of 50,000 people and more only needs about 15,000 domains. So imagine that. That's where your 7,000 to 1 aspect ratio actually lies. And then it completely knocks out command and control vectors altogether. I don't know how many of you do threat hunting, but if you follow through an attack chain, every single attack chain somewhere along the way says, here's my command and control operator, I'm going to reach out. And those attackers do not use DNS because it leaves too much of a digital trail behind, so they use IP addresses. And you play around with Cobalt Strike, it's always by IP address. So Don't Talk to Strangers just kills it before it even can detect it. Complete egress control, right? So if you don't want peer-to-peer connections to come out, if you don't want DOH, earlier we heard John do a very good presentation about the dangers of DNS over HTTPS, because you can't just block TCP port 443. Again, Don't Talk to Strangers prevents that connection from happening. So without you even trying to do anything, it can't reach 1111, right? And also, phishing. IPv6 addresses are hard to imagine how many we have. I don't know how large your mobile network IPv6 address space is here, but in some countries it's already over 80% of mobile LTE or 5G connections are over IPv6 only. Now, in an IPv6 network, every one of us on Earth could be phished 47 octillion times. Every one of us could be uniquely spear-phished that many times. So keeping track of bad IPs, as important as that is, it's not a phishing mitigation strategy, never will be. But again, this just prevents that from happening to begin with. So the approach that we take in terms of the technology is that we have the muscle, which is, we affectionately call it the muscle because that operates off of muscle memory. It's on-premise, it's distributed. We have muscles everywhere in the body. And it is distributed right down to the edge at layer 3 typically, layer 3, layer 2. And then we offer centralized control by way of a controller that's in the cloud, and the muscle checks into the cloud to say, hey, this is my ID, what do you want me to do here? What are my rules, what are my devices, how am I applying policies? And that ends up being the DNS caching resolver at the edge. And it then interacts with threat intelligence, including BrightCloud. So that's how the infrastructure works. And I think we have a little bit of time, do we, for questions and answers?
Q&A, yeah. So,
Any questions? We'll be around. We'll be around if anybody wants to see anything in action. We'll be around here, happy to demonstrate it.
So maybe just to close off, I'm always warned to not make big fat claims, right? As the marketing guy, don't make big fat claims. But how do you say this? I mean, there's the only way, one way to say this is that with SolariGate, our clients who were properly configured behind ZeroTrust connectivity were protected. They were immune to the attack without us knowing that it existed. So there are some things here that I think is worth looking at. It is working, it's practical. And if there are any other questions that you guys have, we'd love to take them.
I'm going to use piggyback off of that, and those of you know how Pegasus works. If you're interested in how Pegasus works as spyware on an iPhone, Citizen Lab out of Toronto did a really good breakdown of exactly what the attack chain looked like. And what we can say with confidence, now having all that research, is that Don't Talk to Strangers prevented a Pegasus-infected iPhone from ever reaching the NSO Control Center. And I'm happy to do a deep dive on that. We also have a white paper that we just published yesterday, and happy to share that with anybody that's interested.
Sure. Thank you, guys. Very good.